I'm not sure. I don't know like how late is late. She didn't say, so
I will
I'm not.
probably dip out a little bit early tonight. As you can tell, I'm starting to like lose my voice. So if I'm a little
Yeah,
quiet tonight, or if I dip out a little early, it's just because it's the daily grind is starting to wear on me.
Yeah, I'm sick too.
we have
So.
Oh Jesus,
Dude, it
oh
only
God.
took 1 week for like my kids to bring back something from school, dude. It's like ridiculous.
Already?
I know, dude. It's insane. I wish that all the kids are wearing masks still, but yeah.
Alas, here we are.
Yeah.
Just got Allegheny County just raised up to high again, making it the third time this summer, and just in time for classes to start.
No.
Oh my.
Wait,
Great.
seriously?
Yeah, we're starting in a week, so
Oh, and it hasn't even started, and they're already at high. Oh God.
yeah, so that means when the little booger vet gremlins come in and get all their shit everywhere, it's going to be like whatever the next level is. Very high, perhaps.
Alpha and Omega. I don't know. I don't think they have classifications at the rate we're going. It's just rubber banding constantly.
DEFCON cough.
Oh my God. Mitch just posted something in the Discord. Libs are already doing the like Liz Cheney 2024.
I saw that
going
shit.
to redacted.
I saw that, dude. Oh God.
Bar
Libs,
is on
why?
the floor.
All right. I guess we could probably just get into it. Graham, I don't know if you're gonna like necessarily make it the entire two, but like depending on what we're talking about and what we're doing, we don't necessarily have to go that long. I think the idea behind tonight, which is 31, so now we crossed the big 30 last week, so this is Ministry of Science 31. First of all, Reed, since I know there's a bunch of folks in chat who didn't like actually see you the last time you were here, maybe go ahead and like reintroduce yourself to the frogs tuning in.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Reed Van Skank. I'm a graduate student studying communication and rhetoric at the University of Pittsburgh, and I also serve as a graduate assistant coach at the debate team at the University of Pittsburgh. I have a lot of years of experience doing academic debate, and I have taken those to study the arguments and rhetoric of right-wing extremists on the internet, particularly on 4chan. And I'm recently talking about Twitch and YouTube and live stream movements as well. So happy to be here again. Last time I talked about my research on Nicholas Fuentes and other similar catboy-loving Nazis. And now hopefully we might talk about something a little bit more lighthearted, but I know better than to suggest that.
Well, I mean, I think we could probably make this lighthearted to some extent. I think the idea behind tonight was to sort of talk about the back end of the front end rather of the intro that you just gave in terms of that like distinction between academic debate, internet blood sports, and almost kind of like giving us a little bit of a taste, or I don't know if it's fair to call it training, but like a little bit of like a peek into the window of academic debate and to kind of like compare it and contrast it with what happens online, right? Because Graham, he's a political streamer, and he certainly has had his like presence in a lot of the typical internet blood sports debate spaces. Where it's not about actually learning anything, it's just you're having to talk to catboy loving Nazis and tell other people listening why racism is bad and shit. So maybe. Oh, hey, what's up, Amber?
Hello.
Hello.
I had good timing there.
Yeah, your timing was, I think, second only to Reed coming in during the Underwear Stunlock Part 2. But yeah, Amber, we'll fill you in.
Part 3?
Don't.
No, we're not going there.
Don't.
Yeah, Reed was not there for part 1. We'll bring you up to speed later. Don't worry. So Reed, maybe like start us off by helping us learn a little bit more about like what academic debate's all about and how it's different from what you see on Twitch.
Yeah, wow. So there are a lot of differences to say the least, but I think that you kind of touch on the one that's probably the most fundamental, the most important for understanding really all the rest of what we can talk about, which is the purpose. Why debate? Internet blood sports style debating, but even the type of debating that's done by streamers who are very well intentioned and trying to produce good messages always has to happen from the vantage point of being entertaining. Nobody's trying to watch boring content. That's why progressive streamers, especially the more popular ones, are going to be platforming these incredibly ridiculous far right personalities, because that massive difference between them and the person that they're platforming is it's funny, it's entertaining, it creates interesting content. But if I were to debate like another social democrat or something like that, that wouldn't be quite as interesting. So a lot of the decisions that go down in online debate come from the basis of having to maintain an audience, having to have a brand, having to make content. And academic debate is not like that at all, because we don't have an audience. Our audience is usually either one judge or a panel of judges. And these judges are usually, in most debate contexts, at least the ones that I think are good, these people have experience as debaters and as educators, and so their purpose is to persuade the judge to vote for them. And ultimately, the reason why we think debating in this format is useful, is a good thing, is because it's educational, not really because it's entertaining. So of course, there's many different formats of academic debate. So sort of talking broadly about academic debate would be maybe be a bit out of place. But from the format that I've coached in my entire career and that I debated in, which is called policy debate, we have two people who have to defend both sides of a controversy. You're not defending only the side that you agree with. And this, again, comes from its perspective as being primarily a tool for education rather than for training yourself to be a good advocate in one particular area. So in my junior year, the topic was the United States federal government should have a national health insurance. Basically, should we have universal health care? So you can imagine that being negative on that position, where I had to defend that the United States should not have universal health care, was a bit challenging for me, because it totally should. It's just like there's not a great case on the negative side, but having to do that is said to be, at least, sort of kind of the engine for the educational aspects of debate. We're not necessarily teaching students to be the best advocate for the only thing that they agree in. We're teaching students to sort of research every possible position, and then from that basis, being informed from all perspectives, being able to legitimately have an idea in the real world.
That was actually the reason I didn't do debate in high school, was because I didn't want to argue the side I disagreed with. But now that I'm older, I would be more open to that. But as a teenager, I was like, no, I'm not going to argue something I don't believe in.
Well, I mean, I think that almost feels a little like, I guess, on brand for us if we're talking about like the academic debate format, because it's actually about exploring arguments that people make around an issue. I guess like maybe like dig a little bit deeper into like the compare and contrast between academic and Twitch, right? Because with academic debate, right, you're trying to essentially explore arguments, philosophy, reasoning, and all of that. I guess like to go a little deeper if possible, like who are the people that typically do academic debates? Like, are they just debate perverts? Are they people who are like skilled in philosophy, who come from a background of philosophy? Like, who are academic debaters? Because we kind of know who Twitch debaters are for the most part.
I think we do. And honestly, if we're talking just about personality types, I actually observe kind of an overlap in Twitch debaters and in academic debaters. Which is, maybe not an incredible reflection on academic debate, but also a good reflection on just, I think, debate itself as drawing in people who tend to be rather curious, people who are contrarian and can use that contrarian aspect into more, I guess, productive, advocative, forms of communication. And then sometimes they don't. All of that said, to speak again from the perspective of the style of debate that I did, there's really a huge swath. I will say one like very clear feature of the community. Is that echo coming from me?
Oh, do you hear an echo?
Yeah, a little bit.
Not me.
I'm wearing headphones, so
yeah,
I don't know. It's maybe just whatever. Anyway, I think that there's a pretty broad swath. One thing that I think is really notable about the activity is that it's pretty left leaning. I would describe like a Hillary Clinton Democrat as being like pretty damn conservative as far as the debate community goes. Bernie Bros are maybe the centrists of the lot, and then on the far left you have like, you know, pretty much every flavor of like wacky you know, lefty ideology that you could find out there. I personally know like hella different varieties of anarchists, post-left anarchists, you know, left comms, you know, Leninists, Trotskyites, Stalinists, all, you know, the whole bunch, the Brady
Based
bunch of
Posadists.
I did read a Posadism argument once against a
Really?
team that I had a great deal of rapport with and knew that we could do a little bit of trolling, as it were. This is to say that the ideological breadth of the activity is pretty broad. You get people who are like classic, you know, policy wonks reading, you know, Washington Post. You get people who are going to clearly become lawyers and who even make positions advocating for movement lawyering as a main reason why people should participate in debate. Then you have people on the more sort of philosophy side. I would consider myself more on the cultural studies side. So I try to bring in sort of Frankfurt style critical theory into the arguments that I make. And that's how I typically coach my students to debate. You have a lot of like activist style debaters who will talk about ways to talk about the resolution, which is the topic that everyone has to debate, from a perspective that informs debaters' abilities to actually go out in the world and make those changes happen. But at the end of the day, all of those arguments are made for the purpose, the singular purpose, really, of getting a ballot from a judge. So the extent to which these can be seen as like good Samaritan acts is got to be kind of filtered through there. So you really do have a whole, you know, spectrum of different people who are using debate to further their career, all the way to using debate to like legitimately find a community of people who are similarly interested in advocating for themselves and oppressed people.
Yeah, I actually didn't like expect to hear you say there was really that broad, I guess, of an ideological cross section as it pertained to academic debate. Because at least on Twitch, it literally just feels like clout chasing. Like that's, I don't know if you can really call that a political ideology, but people just assuming the views that will get them the most content. Like that's at least how it feels to me. Especially on like, you know, a lot of the hippy dippy esque debate panels that don't have Nazis on them because those have to happen somewhere else on a different platform. Um, so that's interesting. So I guess like, does it turn into a bunch of like crusty leftist infighting then if there's like a bigger leftist like representation in academia?
Yes.
It always turns into crusty leftist infighting, Marcus. That's
Of
the
course.
only ending we are allowed.
Yeah, the dialectic versus the postmodernist.
Oh, it's worse than that. It's like you are a synthetic dialectist and I am a monistic dialectist.
Oh,
and so
my
we're
God.
gonna guess what? You're gonna listen to 2.5 hours of that if you get put into the wrong room and get the like philosopheros going at. And I that was me, honestly. Like, I'll be real. You know? But I mean, I think maybe one thing to kind of introduce first, again, this is policy debate. I would say we're probably the most like bizarre of the academic debate genres. Like, I would probably show up to a debate tournament looking like this as a policy debater. Suits and tie, that's not really a thing. We're not like, there's other genres of debate that are much more kind of organized around the center of American politics and are much more, you know, made for literally training people how to talk like a politician or like a lawyer. That is not what we're doing here. In my neck of the woods. But yeah, leftist infighting. That was actually the style of debating that I was like notoriously best at.
Okay, so that's a whole rabbit hole we can jump down
So
right
you're
there.
why we don't have socialism yet.
Yeah, actually, somebody was like, I want to go do something. And I said, wait a minute. Have you read my case brief? And they said, fuck, man, I haven't read your case brief. I can't go do something. And then we had Donald Trump. That's how he got elected.
Okay. All right. Well,
Okay.
you'll be hearing from my Twitter following then.
Yeah, you're
Please
gonna
ratio me.
you're gonna have gremlins in your QRTs
Yeah.
asking why you're not pushing the communism button, Reed. Just letting you know.
Yeah. It's right there.
Just push it. Just do it. Just do it, Dark Brandon. Okay, so now like where all of this is kind of leading me, I'm thinking not like tonight, but a future episode. Since you're like a coach, like you actually coach this at university, take us through like the first day. Like let's say you got a bunch of academics, some of them being from humanities, some of them being STEM lords. You know, you got them in the room, they're interested in debate. Like how does all of this like get organized and set up in the first place? Like how do you start coaching people into how to do this?
Yeah. So the first thing they got to do is they got to be undergraduates, because that's like the people who are going to these tournaments by and large. There are programs by which people who, for one reason or another, have extended their leave as undergraduates and maybe in like a partial graduate state can participate. But largely, we're coaching undergrads to do all of this. And that's how that's like where my career, so to speak, was when I was an undergraduate. That being said, we also have like larger programs like the one I was in as an undergraduate would do public debates as well, which are a bit different. But in any case, you would be an undergraduate first and foremost. The next thing we need to learn is what the topic is, because that pretty much organizes everything that comes after that. We have the privilege this year of having a topic about, I believe it's cybersecurity and AI. And yeah, so the high school side of things is doing emerging technology, cybersecurity, AI, and all of that. And the college side of things, I do a little coaching in both, is doing legal personhood of, again, artificial intelligence, of non-human animals, and of natural environments, which really
That's
huge.
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's the cool thing I really like about this topic is that you have to have competency in both like STEM lord areas. You have to understand how AI works. You have to understand like, the differences between, human animals and non-human animals and all of these sorts of things. And, the ramifications of what could happen to these creatures if they become legal persons. But you also have to understand what legal personhood is, which is, rooted in liberal political theory and rooted in, sovereign sort of Westphalian nation states. So you have to have like a good balance of both of these areas of competency. So really something that I think that's similar between Twitch debaters and academic debaters is you can't be a specialist. You have to understand a little bit of everything, because even if you do get your topic ahead of time, you don't know what that other guy is going to say. Like chances
Most of the time,
are
it doesn't relate to the topic.
Exactly. In fact, we have an entire argument style called topicality, which is when you accuse the other team of going off topic. And I'll say that a solid 25% of my debates that I was in, if not more, came down to topicality, pretty much because I was going off topic as part of my strategy. Like, that's to say that you have to be able to not only talk about the topic in all of the many ways that it will manifest, but you also have to be able to talk on a meta level. You have to talk about the topic before you even get into the debating process to sort of hold people accountable, or to even just have a legitimate debate over what's involved in this issue and what isn't involved in this issue. And I think this happens in Twitch streams too. I mean, like, I've watched at this point for this project, I've watched a lot of hours of debating, and I can't think of a single debate where both sides stayed consistently on topic. And a lot of times the other person could have probably gotten edge out on their opponent if they had just said something with regards to what the topic means and how the other person isn't talking about. Anyway, that was a bit of a rant from your original proposition, but the first thing you'd have to do is have a fairly wide breadth of knowledge.
So that actually, I think we've talked about this in previous iterations, where we kind of touch on the lack of training outside of one's immediate domain or subject matter expertise, especially in like higher ed, like post bachelor's education. I think this is something that I personally, at least, lament heavily. Like, there's no cross sectional political education for people in like hard sciences. people in like the humanities really like have a limited understanding of hard sciences. Like it kind of cuts both ways in terms of like you really don't get a very broad swath of education when you're in like grad school, basically. Whereas, yeah, like in high school, right, you're covering, albeit not at the same depth, but you're covering a lot of different areas. So that seems like I don't know, a point in education where people are really able to like engage in that debate because they have at least, broad knowledge across multiple domains as opposed to just being like hyper specialized in one single area of expertise. So to follow up on that, let's say we wanted to have a debate with people who have education beyond high school, whether it's bachelors, like you said, undergrads, or even like grad students, right? What challenges would you foresee in trying to set something like that up with having actual debate with like a very, I guess, varied group of people? Because you see that on Twitch, right? You see a whole bunch of people who have no fucking clue what they're talking about insert issue here. They start bringing actual like either infectious disease questions or like climate change questions or policy, and then you just get like random conservative 972 who is banned from Twitter because they tweeted pride flag swastikas to people. So
Yeah.
that kind of person, right? So like what are the challenges of trying to like have a debate, whether it's Twitch online with just a varied group of debaters?
Right. I think that this is like, other than the question of purpose, entertainment versus education, the second biggest difference, obvious one between academic and Twitch debate, is the audience. Academic debaters have the privilege to only have to persuade one person, usually, who has degrees, usually multiple, sometimes in the area, sometimes not, but typically communication or something similar, and who understands debate. But if you're debating with a massive group of people to a mass audience, to people who are typically behind screens that you don't know anything about, then what I think the number one thing you'd have to do is to approach the idea of persuasion from the notion that you have to tell your audience what they need to be, because they aren't the judge. I am the judge. This is my perspective. This is why I'm here to cast this ballot. That is not present in the space of online debating. And so when it comes to bringing that to a whole different group of people, I guess the typical rhetorical maxim that people like to talk about is trying to find commonality within this large mass of people. The problem, as I think you kind of hint to with people posting like, the pride flag swastika guy, is what the flying fuck do I have in common with that person? Right? And what if I don't want to have anything in common with that person, which in fact, I don't think that I do. I think I'm doing quite fine without building common ground with that person, TBQH. So I honestly think I'm kind of mulling this over because I see a lot of benefit to having public dialogue with these sorts of people for the express purpose of demonstrating the futility of their positions. But we also know that the people that are persuaded by pride flag swastikas are not like sitting around closely deciding which argument is better by like combing through them and looking at no, like that's not what's going on here. It's an emotional appeal, and it's an appeal to ethos, which means character, from Aristotle. It's an appeal to the sort of strongman character. So there, in one way, you could maybe do the Haas thing and like sort of act in this way in an attempt to get the right to believe you. But what I think that actually does is it gets you to be more like them, not the other way around. So honestly, at this point, I am more in favor of the solution to this issue simply being producing communities that are organized to the point that it wouldn't necessarily be reaching those audiences. Whether that means just choosing to be a smaller platform, which I think is probably the most surefire way to do this, or by just like moderating the hell out of them. Of course, not asking, Big Daddy Zuck to do it, but by having your own moderators and enforcing your own terms as a content creator. That's kind of what I'm thinking at this point, but this is, I'm still sort of observing and reflecting. So this is maybe not my final answer.
Okay, I mean that makes a good amount of sense. And anybody else, feel free to jump in. So I'm not just like, poking Reed's brain verbally by myself. But like, where I want to head with this, because I do want to like utilize your background and expertise to like craft one of those spaces. Because I think what we could do here in the ministry, and we have some people we could probably loop in depending on the topic, but I kind of want to have like one of these more academically minded debates on Twitch, like to actually give you educational debate content, which is like not a fucking thing. Like that doesn't really exist for the most part. So like,
I was curious, like how,
Greg.
like, so one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to is like Intelligence Squared, which is Oxford style debating. So I guess like in the actual procedures and stuff, like how would an academic debate be different than the Oxford style debating? So for those that don't know, Oxford style debating is both sides get an introduction, and then you can question each other for a little bit, and then you have a closing statement, and then Intelligence Squares actually polls the audience before and after to see the undecideds and the fors and the againsts, and see who actually won more people, and whoever won more. So you could actually be in the majority, but the other side wins more people to their side via the undecideds, and you could be in the minority and still win, which is kind of an interesting concept. So I guess like how would that be different? The introduction questions and then the closing statements. How would that be different?
Yeah, so I love Oxford debating. I personally will use Oxford style debate videos to teach my argumentation classes to my non-debate students, like just the general education students, because it has that interactive element where you can literally see people counting votes, and I think it adds a little extra dimension. But academic, at least the style of debate that I do, policy debate. So something that's very similar, and I think that, you know, to kind of address your question, we need to think about, in order to make any sort of debate content educational, is the issue of structure. So my style of debating is a bit distinct because the affirmative side, the side that defends the resolution being a good thing, actually speaks first and last. And you may think, wow, that sounds incredibly overpowered. And you would be correct. The negative gets to speak for a block of time that is substantially longer than any of the affirmative speeches, right smack dab in the middle of the thing. So what we've done with that is kind of sort of made it so that each side doesn't just routinely go yeah, nuh-uh, but they have to sort of craft their arguments around this structure, which is to say that a debate can only be as good and as educational as its structure is. It can only be as well thought out as its structure is. So if your idea of a debate is like, all right, you give your 5-minute opener, then you give your 5-minute opener, and then just talk at each other, and I'm sure that's going to go great. Like, it doesn't. We know that this is not what takes place. You know, that's where, you know, the shit fight begins, because there's not a great degree of moderation. And from my perspective, in like this viewing, the channels that have dedicated moderators who are good at being dedicated moderators, and not like other burqa wearing moderators that are not particularly good at their job, tends to produce better debates, or at least debates where you can actually hear both sides and understand what their argument is. So that would be my first. You know, we got to have, you know, the openers. That's important. You got to have back and forth. I think that that's something, like, my style of debate only has very short 3-minute blocks for back and forth question and answer, and even those are rather structured. I think that for a mass audience, that's just not a thing. I think you do have to have some unstructured back and forth, but like, I think it's got to mostly be organized around, first, a topic that's clearly written out, that everybody knows what it means, because you don't want to have these topicality debates in a public forum. And second, a structure that goes between somewhat structured, or however structured the speakers make them, speeches, and somewhat less structured dialogic cross-examination is what we call it, question and answer periods.
So, I agree with everything you said, and if you could kind of elaborate on what proper moderation within that structure looks like, and if you could, like, from, you know, puppeteering, you know, particular moderators in those communities online, direct them in a more productive avenue, like what would that look like? You know, how does Reed's moderating hippy dippy look like?
Oh God.
First, it's me telling them to please stop immediately.
Right.
That's a joke because heavens no. In earnest, I think that there's a heavy-handedness that needs to be required as well as a sense of consequence. Debaters in an academic forum are not going to be going over their speech time, for example, because they know if they go over their speech time like flagrantly, they're going to lose. The judge is going to be like, no, you know. But when there's no ballot, in the case of Twitch debating or online debating in general, that can't be the stakes. There has to be some other sort of consequence at play. The first one that comes to my mind is just like, you know, obviously you can't debate on this platform anymore if you're going to, you know, start shit. But that, of course, you know, that's not going to stop a troll that had no intention of debating here again in the first place. So I think that really the place where moderation has to kind of begin is maybe even I don't want to even call it a vetting process because that sounds so, you know, stick up ass, but like you got to have like maybe a conversation with the person to be like, you know, what's the side that you want to argue for? What's the basic argument that you're going to make? Just to make sure that they've put at least a modicum of effort into the thing. And then when it comes down to the actual debating, I would say the mute all button would probably be your best bet, or just mute one if it's the one guy going off. But at some point, I think that, you know, a lot of these debates would be better off that if the person who's actually supposed to be moderating would do that sometimes and in fact cut in to be like, look, this person has allowed you to speak for 10 minutes and you have just interrupted them after they spoke for 5 seconds, maybe correct yourself. Like, and I think that's where timing is kind of useful because, you know, even people who are like not particularly well mannered will tend to follow a timer because a timer is inherently authoritative. It gives them, you know, it's all right, time's up, right? So only the people who are like actively trying to, you know, crash the system would keep talking at that rate. I don't know. That's general collection of thoughts, but I think you're right that this is a serious, like, this is probably the serious problem really for producing like solid debate content.
Yeah.
So and that's interesting because like you know the browser based tool that we're all in on like right now in this call, it makes it actually pretty easy to do just that. Like that's kind of why you know I'm thinking of you know if we actually like find a topic that's agreeable, we can make that happen and hold people strictly to timers because it's really easy to just mute or yeet somebody. Like I could actually, do I have the ability to just outright kick somebody? Hang on, since I'm like
You
the
should if you're
moderator of the
hosting it.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, the mute button is literally just a click, so you know that's pretty effing quick. But
I have a question.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Do
Oh,
you
yep, there
think
is a
a,
kick button. Cool. Sorry, go ahead.
do you think having a judge on a Twitch debate would be helpful or harmful?
Yeah, this is something that I thought about for a very long time, actually. And my tentative answer is that it would be optically not the best. Because it would be another basis for whoever won or lost to sort of pump ideology into the result of the debate, you know?
And not because they even won the debate, they would use it as a I was right, I won the debate kind of thing, not even a like I was the best debater, you know?
Right. And I mean, when it's in the public sphere, when it's in the world, there's actual stakes to who wins and loses these things. Like if 300 people even are watching a debate and, you know, the capitalist beats the socialist, then chances are there's like 250 of those 300 people are not particularly well versed in economic theory. They're learning themselves. And when they hear, oh, this capitalist guy won, it adds a little bit more credence to that person's position, even if the socialist just happens to be really ass at debating. So I incline towards no. And the other question is just who has the respect across the aisle in this world to be the judge? Like, can you think of one? They would have to be, you know, fairly well known, which is really difficult to find, of course. And then they would have to be somebody who is well known for being, impartial at the very least, not necessarily non-ideological, because obviously that's not a thing, but they would have to be somebody who can suspend their beliefs and cast an objective criticism of the argument. And I just don't think you're not going to find that. Like, if I were judging, I consider myself a pretty good critic of argument at this point. And if I see a fascist whop the hell out of a communist in a debate, hell yeah, I'm still going to vote for the communist. What do you think I am? Just being honest. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of other people too.
I was worried you guys were all robots for a second there, but that was a joke. I don't think you guys are robots.
Input
Sometimes
argument,
it feels like it.
Output judgment.
Completely unbiased judgment. Released.
So Lavi and Jesus in chat is actually bringing up a couple of good points, Reed. As far as like trying to actually produce sort of like the meta view of trying to make this content, it's a lot more difficult to either like loop in the audience or even like other streamers / debaters, because it requires like reading and prep. And if we're talking about like actually trying to get knowledgeable debaters who have knowledge across multiple domains, like that takes effort behind the scenes to do. Well, first of all, can that be overcome? And if it can, how do you think you could overcome it?
Yeah, wow. I think that honestly, there's a great deal of organic just research that people do in Twitch debates already. This is, of course, not the case for like every single debater online, obviously. But I honestly have been really impressed, particularly by, people like Mouthy Infidel, for instance, or like Rose Wrist, when I've seen their debates and the amount of sort of evidence and research that they clearly put in order to produce their argument. I'm honestly like, this is better than what I see in some of my own debaters, to be honest. So I think that people who are going to volunteer to like be on an educational debate platform would hopefully be among the people who are able and willing to do that research beforehand. That being said, I think it would be kind of cool to have like almost a Dropbox of sorts. So we have a lot of evidence sharing capabilities in academic debate. We even have like a wiki sort of thing where people will open source their arguments, put them up for everyone to see, to make sure that their opponents are prepared for what they have to say, because it just produces like exponentially better debates. If somebody's first speech is, I don't know what that fucker said, as opposed to actually responding to my stuff, my second speech is going to be worse because I don't have anything new to say. So I have a competitive incentive for them to understand what I'm about to talk about. So I feel like something could be replicated where you have like a Dropbox where people will post, or even just like a Google Drive where people will post relevant links that help demonstrate certain arguments or help refute other arguments, as sort of like a community kind of like community preparation guide, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, because I kind of use my Discord like at least for infectious disease related scientific literature for that purpose. It's literally just there as like a basically like an endnote, basically like a different like citation manager almost for me. But that's actually, I think, an advantage of our online spaces. A tool like Discord, like you could use it. It would function analogous to that kind of like a wiki where people can actually store their shit, and then everybody has access to it, and everybody can kind of anticipate arguments, craft counter arguments, and things like that. Interesting. Okay, so Lavi and
story, actually.
Go ahead.
Before the internet, debaters used to carry, they're called cards. Pieces of evidence were called cards because they were printed out and put on index cards. And they used to carry tubs with all of their cards in it. And by tub, I mean like tub. And people would come to tournaments, like scrawny nerds would come to tournaments with 5 of these tubs carrying on the like hotel like trolley things to the university. It was like bizarre. I did this for exactly 1 year in high school. And then like we got into paperless debating and, emailing people things. But this is a problem, like just overproduction of information that the internet has truly solved.
That's a phrase I never thought I'd hear. Paperless debating. Like, yes. I mean, I could see it, back in, yesteryear, especially when you have like, big prominent academics like show up to a university and like have a discussion around an issue. Like I can imagine they would probably have like, their grad students or their assistants like bring them boxes of like printed out literature on like the, burnt out sepia colored paper that's been sitting in their office for like a year for
Yeah.
them to actually like pull out of the back of their head in the middle of a discussion. So that's actually kind of interesting. Do you think the internet's kind of like, I guess, streamlined it? Like, is it much easier to actually debate now with the internet?
Yes, much easier, much more accessible as well.
Would
As
you
I'm
even?
sure you can. Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, like, would you even call what we see in like on this platform debating?
I would.
Okay.
And this is like kind of what I'm going to argue to people because I feel like most people in my shoes, most rhetoricians, most scholars of argument would say no. And they would say no like really fast and really loudly. Um, and the main reason that they would say no is because, the old school justification for debate is that it is a public practice, that it occurs in the public sphere, which means that it has to have some degree of normativity to it. You can't just act out, like internet blood sports, for example, is just like a comically absurd enactment of deliberation that spurns like every conceivable standard of liberal public reason. So a lot of academics would say no on that basis. And I wouldn't. I think it's idealist would be my answer, basically. I think that we should judge things by how they are, how they're actually enacted in the world, and not how we think they should be enacted in the world. So to call something debate because it doesn't match my Kantian yardstick from 1950, I think for one is just a little bit willfully ignorant of the sheer amount of like violent rhetoric that has always existed in American politics. Like, the Civil War perhaps could be a reminder for some of these people who think that debate in this country has always been civil and measured, because it hasn't. So if what we're doing here isn't debate, I think that a lot of things that all of us understand as debate would not be debate. And so I think it necessarily is, for better or for worse.
A really good answer.
Yeah, so I think like building up to, creating something like this, like with our group of people. I was kind of talking about this in chat, but like we kind of have like an ecosystem of more like, I should say, less blood sports minded people on Twitch, people who might be willing, like you said, to actually like put in a lot of this work. Um, how, I guess, in like going back to the structure question, right? Like I think this also touches on what Lavi and Jesus was saying. Like, it's really hard to like throw people who either don't necessarily have domain expertise into a question, or to like have the chat understand what's going on. Because you can maybe have like a really robust discussion among, 4 or 5 people in here, but like if chat hasn't read half the source material, they're just gonna be like, people are yelling, and I recognize some words. Is this fun? Like, how do you
Yeah.
take that problem and sort of like solve it through the academic debate lens? Like how do you make it more like content friendly without compromising the actual moderation structure integrity that you brought up earlier, in terms of like trying to make it less of like a Nazi shouting party?
Yeah, man. That's a difficult one because I think that some of it at least will just come down to the ability of the debaters themselves. And again, their priority. If the priority is to educate an audience, a mass audience, then the people who are speaking have to decide that they have to choose their arguments accordingly. Like, I could probably do the capitalism versus socialism debate by talking about like the tendency of the rate of profit to fall, or like K waves or some other stupid thing. But that's not like that. People are not familiar with what's going on there. So those aren't the arguments that I would choose in that context, because I may succeed in confusing my enemy and therefore preventing them from responding to me, thus winning the debate. But I wouldn't be succeeding in the ultimate goal, the reason why I was there, which is, again, to persuade and to entertain an audience. So part of it, I think, just comes down to conscious and willful selection and moderation of the arguments by the debaters themselves. And I think that the second thing comes down to the selection of topic. The topic needs to be not a specialist topic. For example, let's take the legal personhood topic. Should AI be legal persons in the United States. That might be a doable topic in this kind of battleground, because we all know what AI is, and it's pretty easy to explain what legal personhood is. And I think that we could probably have a pretty good discourse about the benefits and limitations and potential disadvantages to such a proposal. But if I were to take it to like maybe the second or third level argument, which is to say a second level argument is when you have answered a question and you ask another question after that, that's the second level. Do it again, that's the third level, fourth, fifth, etc. The more you go down that line, the more specialist your arguments have to become and the less accessible they become. So I think that having those general topics like national health insurance, yes or no, or even if it's a more sort of like lefty versus lefty debate, like do leftists have an ethical obligation to vote in the American presidential elections, to revive the most wretched discourse of any century? That would be, that's something that people could, kind of latch onto. But if I were to ask, like, is so-and-so's theory the best way of understanding why capitalism is collapsing? No one cares. Like, write a paper about that.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of like processing a little bit of that. Because like a lot of us come from more like left-leaning spaces. So I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier about the actual, grass-touching academic debate being overly represented with leftists. But
I would say grass touching is maybe a little bit too kind.
Oh, damn. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I was trying to be nice.
We're grass adjacent at best.
Debating the ideology of touching grass at the farthest extent. Okay.
There's grass on the quad.
That implies we're going outside to hang out with friends.
Yeah, maybe someone brings in some grass into the classroom, into the lecture hall.
Yeah, falls off their shoe.
Just brings one of those giant pots from Walmart, and it's filled, but then at the top it's just a lawn, a fucking miniature lawn, turf on the top.
Yeah, just a roll of AstroTurf. It's not even real grass.
It's plastic.
So Reed,
AstroTurf sounds like a terrible Harry Potter novel.
That sounds like J.K. Rowling went Super Saiyan.
Oh God.
It's AstroTurf.
Reed, so there is an idea that is propagated throughout the kind of online debate circles that through robust debate and the dialectic, there will be the best and at least most adjacent to the truth idea will come forward, and that it will sway opinions and like get people on their side, or at least like people within the margins. Do you feel like there's any truth to that, or is that more just kind of
Yeah, this is an idea that's literally as old as democracy. And I think that it's a bit willful in certain ways because it is also rather idealist. Because debates don't happen in vacuums. They happen on platforms. They happen with people. They're judged by, I think at this point, research is demonstrably proving to be irrational audiences. So if it were the case that a dialectic sustained long enough on some fantasy land that's unmediated does somehow arrive at the truth, even that truth would likely not be recognized by the people whom it matters to be recognized by, which is the people that are listening to it. And this isn't to say that audiences are like, sheeple who hear a strong emotion and suddenly decide what their positions are. No, it's that audiences have prior experiences and histories and backgrounds that informs their perspective. Again, I could hear the fascist whip a communist's ass in a debate, and chances are I'm not changing my political ideology after hearing that one thing. So while I do think that there is a certain level of truth to it, which is to say that if a person themselves engages in a dialectic for a consistent period of time, if that person is doing so with good faith, then that person is more likely to arrive at the truth. I believe that that is very much the case. But I think if we extrapolate that true argument into a broad context without attending to those other aspects of the context, then I think we end up making some very errant decisions, such as platforming fascists in order to allow everyone to think that we have defeated them, which opens us and our comrades up to a great deal of danger, as I believe we have learned in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, if I
Thank
could
you.
snap, I would snap.
Yeah. Wait, you can't snap?
No, not really.
Oh,
Neither can I.
That's a snap. What do you
I meant
mean?
yeah.
not very loud. No,
Oh
y'all
no,
are
You
like,
gotta
Amber's
do
one of
more
those people
force.
who can do it with like these fingers. I have to do it with my ring
It's
finger.
just the middle finger and the thumbs.
yeah, no, you're,
Anyway,
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. We're not going to get stun locked on snapping.
Sorry. Sorry.
No,
And,
you're
for
fine,
the
you're
horde,
fine.
for the
I'm the
horde.
sorceress of stun locks.
Yeah. So yeah, because to go back to the topic, I'm sorry, Reed. We're so ADD, me and Amber.
It's
That's
so
all
bad.
good.
I was just yelling because Amber got a horde chair for the horde.
Oh.
Man.
Well, I have always seen that argument that like we're gonna bring people over to our side because we've got the best arguments as like if someone is going to be brought over
Arcade.
who is like in a right wing or like fascist online community by your arguments, well, they were likely already within the margins anyway, and that person is looking for a reason to get out, right?
Right. You know, the alt-right rabbit hole, that sort of metaphor, I think again there is a great deal of truth to that element, but I think that the metaphor is a little bit flawed because a rabbit hole implies that there is this like edge and then you suddenly fall instantly in. And that is just plainly not how persuasion works. Unless something just absolutely life-shattering happens to a person, chances are their worldview will not be toppled on its head from like, nice, polite, liberal, multicultural, anti-racist to like Richard Spencer enjoyer in the span of a couple of YouTube videos. That is not what happens. And the same is true for de-radicalization, so to speak. One does not come out of untangling all of those conceptions about the world that they have just because they watched you own a chud.
Right. Well, like their biases are, like you said, the kind of their experiences that inform their positions are going to be what gets them there. There's also like a gladiatorial element to these kinds of spaces where like they're there to cheer on, their streamer, their person. Like the biases that some individual in that space has accumulated is what's going to bring them to either be like, you know what, I think this guy's, that I've been following for a while, uh, might kind of be an idiot. I think I might be like in a echo chamber. Well, most people who are within that space are not going to come to that same conclusion. There's maybe, if I had to guess, 5% of any given community that exists within that margin.
I think that's really a solid guess, honestly, the number 5%, because the model that I like to teach to my public speaking students and my argumentation students about persuasion is called the elaboration model of persuasion. And basically its whole shtick is that as a speaker, when you're trying to persuade somebody, you give them kernels of information that they can ponder upon for a long period of time. They are not sort of converted, after your testimony. This isn't Christianity. Like this is a dialectic that's sustained over a long period of time. And thus, your main goal is to give them things that they remember so that in their own time, again, as you say, they can mull over it and compare it to the things that they know. And of course, this is primarily a subconscious process, not a conscious process. And over time, they will eventually maybe achieve cognitive dissonance. And then what they do with that cognitive dissonance is largely out of your control.
Do you think it's actually like hard information that would bring someone to that, or is it more sloganeering? Because I've always thought like catchy, kind of like food not bombs, people over profits, like that kind of stuff is like what people chew on a little bit longer than well, based on this Cambridge Analytica study, we can see that X, Y, and Z. I think like the more catchy stuff is what people tend to gravitate towards.
I think you're right. The three sort of main components of persuasion that we use in rhetoric is ethos, again, character. And I would say that that is widely regarded to be the most important, because if you are not a credible witness, if you're not a credible speaker, then the likelihood that they'll care about the other two coming out of your mouth is pretty low. So there's ethos. The next is pathos, which is just emotional appeal. And then there's logos, which is logic, the actual soundness of the argument. So even in the most generous reading of that, the actual facts and evidence is only a third of the pie. And I think that now that we know a lot more about how human communication works and how nonverbal communication tends to take up more than 50% of one's processing when they're looking at any communicative act, I think that the chance that logos goes any higher than 10 to 15% is pretty low, even for, like, again, a rather specialized audience. If I were to show up looking like this to an Oxford debate, they wouldn't pay attention to me because I have already violated what they think is a reasonable character. Likewise, if I were to show up to a Twitch debate wearing a tuxedo, people would be like, "What's this jokester doing?" You know, they would think there's a bit, you know, or I would have to be like somebody
Chat
on the
would just
far
be
right.
talking about your drip the whole debate.
So in any case, it wouldn't be the effect that I'm going for, to say the least. So I think that those shocking statistics, again, they have to be shocking to be relevant. You know, like the stupid like crime statistic thing that always gets the people down to take the red pill. You have to be predisposed to interpret that statistic in a particular way for it to persuade you in any sense. So those other two, the emotional appeal, and I think specifically the character appeal, the identification appeal, are kind of the scaffolding that allows any of those facts, statistics, or even just like sound arguments to matter.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense. I wanted to go back to something someone in chat, I think it was Sunday in Theory, wanted to ask you, Reed. Because I think this kind of goes back to the question of like, how do you actually put this kind of content together? They were asking about the notion of iterative debates, where like you debate the same topic repeatedly over time and try to sort of like get a read into like how the discussions are improving, whether the argumentation's getting better, where are people like actually rhetorically addressing points effectively. Like, do you think that's a structure that would help people almost like learn to be a debater? Like, do you think that's constructive, either in terms of content and or in terms of like becoming better rhetorically at arguing for anything?
You know, I think that so my style of debate, we debate the same topic for a whole year of debate. You know, we do maybe even 100 plus individual competition rounds on a topic if somebody is doing like extra debates before tournaments. So, you know, the benefit of that is, you know, the arguments that you hear at the national debate tournament, which is held in March or April, are a lot better than the arguments that you hear at the first tournament of the year in September. So people do tend to like learn from that. But I mean, for me, the obvious kind of issue at play is twofold, and both have to do with audience attention. One, how long is somebody, even somebody who's like interested in academic attention, how long is somebody going to be interested in hearing debates over the same topic? And the second one is that you would have to iterate that a number of times in order, and with the same people, to achieve the same results, probably having to go back to the drawing board and get more research in order to patch up argumentative holes in order to see any real progress. So this would be a venture that would take probably multiple nights of viewing. Maybe one way that it could happen, if one focuses entirely on delivery and working with a single set of evidence that nobody changes after the debate and only focuses on delivering the arguments better and like speaking better and maybe even putting the arguments forth in a more accurate way. If you do like really quick, like 2-minute speech style debates back to back, you could you could do like 2 hours of content with maybe 3 of those debates that are like maybe somewhere in the realm of 40 minutes each. Have brief discussion after that. I could see that being a strategy that potentially works and gets the benefits of iterating debates compacted as much as one possibly could. But of course, I think that there are, you know, if you wanted to extend that anymore, then you're going to run into some just standard problems that anyone would have with producing content. this is all speculative, by the way. I don't know. Has anybody tried anything like that or knows of it? I've never seen people like returning to the same topic in this
I think
subculture.
some people have tried that. There was there's one kind of debate circle where there was going to be one on political violence, but the structure was not fleshed out enough, and like it was too broad of a topic. So they like returned to it another time to be more concise with it. So yes and no, but it's very rare that that happens. It's usually topical whenever the hot button issue or the discourse is that week.
A lot of
'Cause that gets the
call-ons I've
clicks.
noticed.
Yeah.
The orbiters.
I hate to do this, folks, but I as you can probably tell, I'm like losing my voice more and more as we go on. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and roll out. I hate to do this.
No, it's all good, dude. Yeah, you gotta protect the
I gotta
money
protect my money
maker.
maker. Yeah.
No,
Cheers.
it's
right.
all good, Graham. You know,
No.
take care of your voice because well, you're gonna be streaming in the morning again, yeah?
Yeah. Every day.
Yeah. So yeah, no, you absolutely need to. Yeah, no worries, dude. Thank you. I always appreciate it, Graham.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you, Reed. Like I said, if ever you want to have a chat, just let me know.
Yes, always a pleasure.
Later, man. Have a good one.
Later, folks.
Bye, Grandma.
Hi, Graham. All right. I think like well, actually I don't want to frame it like this. I don't want to be like now that Grandma's left, we can talk about this. But like you know, between me and Greg, like you, me, and Greg, I'm directing this at Reed. Like we're all grad students. Amber's thinking about going to grad school. I don't know if the
I'm a-
decision's actually made.
Oh,
I'm
yet.
sorry.
applying tomorrow.
Oh, let's go.
Nice.
Good shit.
Congrats.
Good luck.
I would
So-
say get that bag, but I wouldn't like. We don't get bags.
Yeah, there is no bag.
It's
yeah,
a bag, but it's like this big.
Yeah, it's a little like a change pouch.
Yeah.
That's the bag.
Here's
Get
your
that coin
allowance,
purse.
bitch.
But I guess like where I'm going with that, like now that we have like the academics as a career type people like in here now, because I think chat's kind of talking about this too. Like back to that question of iterative debate, like do you think it's possible to get academics to actually like bring chat along by digging deeper with every iteration of debate? Because I think it's K-Pars and Lavi and Jesus, right? They're both kind of saying chat might get more out of iterative debates if we start digging deeper into like theory and philosophy that underlie arguments about a particular topic. That might help like educate the chat. But like, do you even think like academics will be able to keep up with that with our normal like academic schedules and workflow? Like sustainability, I think, is what I'm trying to really hint at here. Like that's another big issue with an endeavor like this is people. I don't want people to like get burnt out because they're having to do a bunch of extra reading for a Twitch debate panel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that it would I think the best way to combat that is probably, I mean, this is, a little bit of a hard limit, but would maybe encourage more participation from a diverser group of people, is to limit your own debating to debating the people that or debating the topics that you already have sort of at least enough familiarity with to be able to hold a discourse on Twitch. Like, if I were to do something like this, I would never sign up for an iterative debate about like a super deep scientific controversy, because that would require me, to go way out of my way in order to figure out what the hell I'm talking about. But I would definitely do one for like, like capitalism versus socialism, for instance. I don't know, because that's just what I did in debate. That was what fueled my career, really, was owning the capitalists, as it were. Or to be more specific from like my actual field, like talking about platform regulation. Should platforms deplatform people? I feel like I could defend either side of that debate pretty readily, honestly. So maybe this would be, if it is your expert thing, I think that most academics would be available to do that. And the main issue would just be the same with any live stream gig, which is being able to manage chat, which is just an interpersonal skill. And an attention driving skill that, we all are going to need to get.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I was like leaving Graham out of that question, because like he streams, like that is a skill he already kind of has. So, that's, I think, a thing for us more like academic background people to kind of like keep in mind, that there needs to be that, I guess like thought lurking in the back of your brain about like, at the end of the day, we're trying to interchange chat at the same time. Like, let's not get super crusty about this. But at the same time, too, like if people get really heated and like passionate, then, even if chat doesn't understand what like, hairs we're splitting, it still might be a little entertaining. So I guess it's just a balance, is what you're really getting at. Just have to strike a good balance.
Even just having a moderator to be like, hey, you, like there's chats going on, like how TAs function, or who in other contexts, where they'll be like, I got to do this very specific compartmentalized task so that, the professor can keep on lecturing. The moderator would function similarly there, especially if it's like a relatively fast moving chat. They could be the one to see threads that are starting to form and be like, hey, there's this interesting thing. How about you pull that in? Just take the load off.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, Reed, how would you feel about like coaching us, like this small group starting out, like myself, Amber, Greg, Gremlo. I think there are a couple of other people who normally kind of participate in like the Twitch Paul space. I'm thinking Paradigm Shift / Marquise, maybe Kid Notkin, maybe some other. I think Maddie would actually probably be pretty good for this because she comes from like an organizing and policy background. But like, how would you feel about kind of not tonight, but like coaching us through sort of that structure and trying to like get the growing pains out of the way and actually create something like this, alongside us?
That would be dope. I would love to do that. The more people that can have fun with debate and can gain something from this activity, without which I don't know what the fuck I'd be doing right now. I would be honored to, really.
So then let me turn this to Amber and Greg. What topics would you want to debate as like a first topic? And this might not have an answer immediately, but like what comes to mind when I ask you that question?
I mean, the thing that like we already iteratively debate constantly is like deplatforming. I would say that's kind of like, I would say that's like a huge question. Like how far, what do we do? I think that's an interesting one that we already kind of go through.
And we can actually
probably as well. Like, should the deplatformers be, the actual platforms themselves? Should they be the internet service providers? Should they be the government? Should they be the users?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I want to ask a question first. Do you want it more academic so that we have... Well, yeah, I guess, do you want it more academic, or do you want it more like a Ministry of Science topic where it's tends to be more political occasionally?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like the mantra, right? Like everything ultimately boils down to politics at the end of the day anyways. Like, if we were to start a discussion about like COVID policy, you could talk about science all day.
I was going to say we could have like a lab leak versus wet market debate, because I know you would just have so much for us to work with, Marcus.
There is a lot of source material. Yeah, I've called enough lab leakers paint drinkers on Twitter.
You have a bank.
Yeah, I have a lot of fucking reading actually on that, on both sides. Although some of the lab leakers can't figure out that if you want people to believe your argument, you shouldn't put your propaganda behind a paywall. Because I tried to look at it through Wall Street Journal, and it's all paywalled, so you can't even read their shit. And they're tweeting like, we owned the natural origin people, easy clap. But it's like, dog, I can't read your argument. It's behind a paywall. What the fuck is wrong with you?
So Miss Frizzle said the ethics of gene editing humans, and I would fucking die for that as a topic.
Yeah, I would rather do stuff like that. I mean, it's like COVID lab leak stuff is kind of, I don't know if we gain as much by like listening or understanding those other conspiratorial arguments, because it just falls back on conspiracy or, like, is evolution true or something like that, where you're just like, there's nothing to be gained. I feel like, I don't know. I guess Reed would have the idea on that. Like there's like good faith arguments and then there's not. And
yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, like what we want to have underlie our topic is actual like philosophy and theory. Like lab leak, you can have like a debate, but that's like a technical debate. Like it ends at the technical aspects, and it doesn't really invoke, any sort of philosophy aside from, the black swan problem or, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Like very, very basic, like surface level philosophy is kind of where that topic ends. But if we were to go into something like, ethics of gene editing, then you're getting into like more broad worldviews. You're getting into actual like political takes and opinions. So I think regardless of what the topic is, like there needs to be a very rich underlying like philosophical foundation that you could start like getting into.
I just don't know how many topics there are that we're going to be able to like.
Dude, topically, like right now, like
there's a lot.
temporally, like the IRA is a great one, the Inflation Reduction Act and stuff. I thought that's an awesome topic. I think I would love to talk. I've been trying to find people to debate me, man. All the Republicans don't want to debate. They're all Daddy Trump. They're like in defense mode right now. They're all like circling the wagons. Nobody even wants to talk about it. So
yeah, they're too busy trying to do an insurrection at the FBI to talk
about
anything else.
I know, it's crazy, dude. It's really frustrating. We're like the stats are unreal. We're spending more on science and research and engineering right now in the last year than defense. It's the first time ever in the United States history that we've done that. I mean, it's crazy.
That's a fucking milestone. But like, it's one of those things where, bringing up like the IRA as an example, the bill, not the terrorists. Actually talk. Although we do talk about terrorists. I mean, we could talk. Oh, that's another debate topic right there. Like,
freedom fighters versus terrorists
amounting to domestic terrorism. Like that's a pretty straightforward topic. But like, ultimately, we can brainstorm. Like, I think we have enough neurons between all of us to where we could come up with a pretty good list of topics to actually talk about. We have chat too. Like, chat is literally like frothing at the mouth to suggest topics. So we can absolutely crowdsource this, make this a truly built by chat for chat type of deal.
Gene editing is like probably one of the most classic, like intro to ethics debating topics anywhere. I remember debating that topic literally in this like rinky-dink middle school, like little league debating that I did that my mom coached. It's like that's like a pretty big, because it, asks so many fundamental questions. And at the end of the day, whether or not like how this would function technically, it is relevant enough to the point where your scientific knowledge would be an asset and would help teach people things, but it's not so technically involved for the sake of the ethical argument that it becomes sort of lost in all that. Really, all of these, like the Inflation Reduction Act and really any sort of timely, like what is the effect of this act going to be in the real world, since it's also speculative, those kinds of things tend to go away from technical jargon. Are conservatives domestic terrorists? That's just like sometimes just a question of definition. Yeah, really all of these I think would make really solid sort of foundational starting points for a cute little series.
Yeah, and I will also pitch to chat. You can do it either now or in Discord, but if you have things that you think would be a spicy topic, I mean, we could actually, I think there are a couple of questions from chat that I'll ask Reed, but so with some of our remaining time, like before we hit the 2-hour mark, we could just start brainstorming some topics. Reed, I will give you eventually in the ministry Discord like a separate like space to just kind of like catalog some of these things, and then we can maybe sort of expand the Discord storage for like literature or articles that relate to some of these topics.
Sure.
Actually, let me scroll up because I think, oh god, who is asking a question? So this is a good question. Dessel and Mirror, I think they were asking this jokingly, but you probably have more knowledge on this, Reed. Do actual like academic debates talk about like insane, crazy conspiracy shit like flat Earth or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, the cool thing about my genre of debate and what makes it, I think, the best is that the only rules are like the structure. Like, here's what the speech times are. There is a rule that you have to abide by the resolution, but there is no stated interpretation of what the resolution means. So, for instance, I read Posadism as an argument in once. My argument was that, the affirmative team was saying that they were going to stop like U.S.-China relations from going sour, which causes nuclear war and kills everyone. And I said, what if that's what causes communism to come about? This, again, was a team that I had fairly good rapport with, a judge that I knew was ready to get lost in the sauce with me. So I, defended this, bonkers argument, and I did, in fact, lose that debate. But, that's fine. This all to say that, yeah, people will defend like wackadoodle shit, but usually it's not because they actually believe. At least from, I haven't seen anybody do this from any earnest basis. They will typically do it at tournaments that are maybe a little bit more lighthearted, or low stakes tournaments against people that are just friends with them and they want to, lull and troll around. And sometimes just because they don't like the person that they're debating and want them to have a poor debate.
Whew. So I guess like as an extension of that, like do people take like the conspiracy type debate topics in academia? Like do they do that for fun? Like do they want to just like deliberately brain poison themselves for just the fun of doing it? Or like do you think they gain something out of doing that? Because you can make an argument. I think Rubinsky was making this argument in chat, trying to actually get like somebody who unironically believes this and is out there like, distributing flat earth magazines on people's doorsteps and shit like that. That would be a little bit harmful, but like,
Yeah.
I guess like if there are people within academic debates that are deliberately trying to assume a pro conspiracy position and have to like consume all of that brain poison, like does that hurt them? Do they actually gain something from that? Like is it draining? Like at least from like a Twitch perspective, I read COVID conspiracy shit all the time, and it gets old after a while. Like do other people kind of feel the same way?
I will say that this is like maybe less than 1% of debates happen like this.
Got it. Okay.
Very important caveat, but the people that I know that have done this before, myself included, has been primarily just for in very specific instances and haven't made their entire strategy out of it, because that would just not be viable. You would lose those debates. Especially since, again, we're organized around a question. You can't just start ranting about like lizard people if you have to answer whether or not healthcare is good, right? Like that's not gonna get you anywhere. So I think that there's a competitive incentive really built into the ballot model of debating to not do that. And I also will say that if this were to happen in front of an audience of people, I would say it's like holistically bad and like not for the purpose of like training. I think it's a good thing to be able to like role play a conspiracist for the purpose of demonstrating how to, refute those conspiracy theories should you hear them, or to be more precise, how to speak to somebody who believes in those conspiracy theories, because refutation is usually not what you want to do, really, in my opinion, at least. But so that is to say, I wouldn't have read Posadism if there was like an audience of people. I mean, if it wasn't just like some crusty graduate student who was judging me.
It's interesting you bring up the role play, because we did that actually a couple of weeks ago with Del Maximum and another streamer, Dando Rando. It wound up getting taken down from the YouTube where we were just storing the VODs of everything for medical misinformation, which is actually really fucking funny.
Dang, are you serious?
Yeah, they took that down where we were pretending to be a bunch of like anti-vax hogs, and trying to like simulate that role play, like. And that goes back to what you were saying, Reed. Like, do you engage in refutation? Do you just try and like learn more about their worldview and what like got them to that point, rather than just throwing information at them? Like we were kind of doing a little exercise to learn what it's like to talk to one of those people, since you don't always see them or have an opportunity to do it. But it got YouTube fucking yeeted that shit. So
mine's unlisted. Really, mine's unlisted, and I didn't get taken down, so I still have it.
I might have to go bug the editor and just have him re-upload it unlisted, and then have the link in Discord for people who want to look at it. But okay, so now that's interesting. That's another obstacle I didn't think of until just now. Like ironically, actually deplatforming, right? Because that's an act of deplatforming, but we're actually trying to do this as a simulation, and we don't ironically believe it. So, do you foresee that being an issue with like online debate content, the way we're kind of trying to approach it? Like, do you think we'll get swept up by whether whatever algorithm or bot winds up doing this shit?
I mean, it's kind of inevitable to a certain extent. If you're like discussing things that are in any way going to prevent like corporate advertisers from feeling great about having their advertisements on your stuff, then chances are it's going to get regulated by large platforms. And, there's ways to sort of get around that. I mean, the fact of live things happening already means that there is at least an audience here that will see a thing. And of course, having it on like an actual video sharing service afterwards is preferable, certainly. but not strictly necessary for the purpose of producing meaningful content. There's, of course, like very unsavory other websites that you can put videos on that many debaters have utilized. Most of them, I don't think, will be very hospitable homes for this style of argumentation, but that doesn't, lefties can make websites. I don't think that it is structurally impossible for there to exist a left-wing, relatively or more progressively moderated, I should say, service for those purposes, or even just a Google Drive where videos are shared and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll be a problem, but I don't think it will be like a death knell to the whole project. At least hopefully not.
Yeah, I mean that's good to know. I mean, at the very least, you can store things unlisted, like Greg was saying, just to have it consumable. Because none of us are partnered. Grumlow's, I think, actually still waiting to hear back on his partner application. So, in the event that he actually gets partnered, he could probably like boot up the stream and then actually have it stored permanently, since Twitch partners get longer term VOD storage, whereas us non partners, it just gets deleted after 2 weeks. Okay. Give me a second, Greg, Amber. How would you guys feel? Because I know Amber, especially, I think you've been doing a lot of like political reading recently. Oh shit, Amber's gone. I'm just looking at VDO. She's like in the bathroom or something. Fuck, I was about to ask her a question. Oh, there we go.
You rang?
Sorry, did I like interrupt a bathroom break? I did not mean
Kind
to. Like,
of.
summon
It's
you
fine.
back.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you can finish. I'm not,
Okay.
not here.
I just have to pick something up. I'll be right back.
It's fine. Well, here, let me direct it to you first, then, Greg. Like, how much reading or how much bandwidth do you think you would have for an exercise like this, in terms of, like, let's say we're talking about something that you don't necessarily have immediate knowledge of. Like, how much reading or investment of time do you think you'd be willing to do?
I mean, unfortunately, I got TA coming up this quarter, so it's like
that's right.
Notoriously bad, probably. Actually, it's unfortunate, but I mean, normally, give me some time and I could like be on the rotation or something and come in. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. I'd like to do the reading and stuff beforehand and construct it, and not just wing it. So
yeah. Because I'm thinking, depending on sort of the guest scheduling coming up, we could, in theory, like switch the panel to Tuesdays if it would make your availability better, and then kind of go from there and figure out what topics we want to actually integrate. But we're gonna have to sit down behind the scenes and do a little bit of like scheduling to figure out like the timing of everything. Amber, I'm gonna sort of direct the same question to you. Like, how much bandwidth do you have for reading outside of what you normally do?
Like, do you mean
For,
literal reading, or do you mean research in general? Because
yeah, I mean, research into a topic in general. Yeah, not like, reading a giant book of theory or anything.
Yeah. If I can watch YouTube videos, you'll have 8 hours of my day. Because I'll just come home and play WoW and watch YouTube videos about the topic on the other monitor. If I have to read science papers, I make no promises. No, I'm just kidding. I would probably read like 1 or 2, but I think beyond that, I wouldn't be able to get myself to sit down and do it multiple times. You know what I mean? Like, I can do it in one sitting, but beyond that, I would probably just like...
Yeah, I think that's actually really valuable insight, because if we're going to loop in other streamers into this kind of like, bench of people to participate in these debates, especially if they don't have the expertise, like we would need material to kind of bring them up to speed without having to throw like half a Google Scholar page at them.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, you could just, if the abstracts of the research articles, say, are like extensive enough that you get a general understanding of the paper, then you could probably just like put the abstracts in like a document and just send it to people if you want like a bunch of research articles. ADHD really does make reading research papers hard.
We actually have a special way of formatting evidence to make it more efficient to read. So like,
why don't you
we
tell
even
me to
have a
shut
Word
up?
template for something like this, because The point is to read as much evidence as possible in a certain time period. So we read very fast, much more quickly than anybody should talk in public. So we have the method helps your eyes literally read the text faster. So that could even be done with abstracts, just to be like results thing, method thing. That's probably all one would really need to know in order to make a solid case for the argument in a debate. There's 15 seconds of reading.
Yeah, if you have like any pre-made templates, that's something we could actually like put in Discord too for like trying to format evidence. 'Cause I think like more so probably between you and me, Reed, at least at the start, like for a particular topic, we would probably have to supply some of this reading in already digested form, like a mother bird in some capacity.
That's why I said like the abstracts, because you could just copy and paste them. I was gonna say like give them a digested version, but then that requires a lot of work from you guys or other panelists. So that's why I was saying just copy and paste the abstracts, because that's not a lot of work.
I put the template in the Discord. It takes a little bit of setting up, and it apparently hasn't been updated in a while. And if you have a Mac, don't put it on your computer.
You will never get your computer back.
One of my students, apparently it doesn't work because their computer had a little whoopsie when
just tell them to not get a Mac.
That's what I keep saying. Oh my God, these kids. They're like, please don't let me repair my own computer. I don't want to be able to repair my own computer. Christ.
All right, I think what I'll probably do, I'm gonna make a separate Discord channel for this. I'm gonna give obviously all the panelists permission. We can brainstorm some topics and then see who in our like typical ecosystem normally like would be interested in participating, depending on topic, right? Because some topics are going to be more appealing to others. And then we'll work on like consolidating, entry level reading and evidence, and then we can almost like funnel that down to chat for anybody who's interested in like reading ahead of time. So that way they're not like totally unawares of what all's going on. But actually, Reed, do you mind if I take what you posted and put it in chat for people via verbatim plugin?
Yeah, of course. The setup's relatively straightforward. I have my little Discord thing, agme/Reed. You can just ping me if you have any issue with it.
Sweet. Okay.
Again, do not put it on your computer if you have a Mac. I will not be accepting reimbursements for y'all broken ass Macs.
I didn't realize this would like brick a Mac.
It wasn't bricked, to be fair. It was just severely bad.
Compromised.
You open the document and a cement brick just flies through your window and hits your computer.
That would help a lot of people in society if that were to happen to them.
All right, let me solicit from chat, since I think we're kind of reaching the natural endpoint of this discussion. Chat, if you have any other questions for Reed or for anybody on this topic, now is your time to shine. I'm trying to think, Greg, in the YouTube space, have you interacted with anybody that you think might be, I guess, a good participant in an exercise like this?
No.
Well then, points for honesty. I mean, I could maybe like try and get somebody like President Sunday in on it, since I know you can talk to him. I could probably do that, or at least talk to him through in time.
That's probably one of the better persons.
That's a good question, K-Pars.
Ooh, yeah, K-Pars asks, what's the optimal number of people for a debate, and what is too big? Because there are definitely, like, the very first debate I was on Twitch was 8 people, not including the so-called moderator who didn't moderate anything. But it was just a massive shouting match back and forth, and it was simply a show for content. But, like, how big is too big?
That's a great question, and 8 sounds like a clown fiesta.
It was
2 on each side.
Yeah.
It was an 8-person round robin. There were no fucking sides in that one.
It depends on the sides. So if you want to have really clear win conditions, then the best way to do it is 2 sides. My genre of debate, we have 2 people per side, a debate team. I debated with the same person for 2 years. We were like a team.
Oh, wow.
And did the same sort of configuration on each side. I would be the point person for the negative arguments, and they would be the point person for the affirmative arguments. Other genres of debate are single player, but every single genre of debate that's really big in the United States, with a couple of exceptions, are two-sided things where you have to switch sides. I think that it is possible to do a three-sided controversy, but it would take a little bit more expertise on the behalf of the speakers, because they would have to be able to not only divide the time evenly between the three of them, but also address everyone's argument and make their win condition clear, which is harder to do when there's two other people you're competing against. But I think it can be done. Four, more than that, I don't think so. So it's less about the number of people and more about the number of sides. And I think that the only answer is 2 or 3 sides and 1 to 2 people per side.
Okay, so theoretically, if you really wanted to stack the deck, so long as things were heavily moderated, you could have a three-sided debate with 2 people per side. So you could have theoretically 6 people.
That would be maybe hard, because each the 2 people would have to collaborate to make sure that their side is answering the other 2 sides, which involves answering both people's perspectives in that side. I think that genre of debate would probably be one that requires a great deal of preparation beforehand, and potentially even a dry run to make sure it's of any quality. So that one maybe not, but I feel like 2 sides, 2 people, 3 sides, 1 person, and then anything less than that is probably going to work.
Yeah, because typically, I think I don't have to tell you, but a lot of the Twitch panels that wind up debating issues, the sides are pretty binary. It's usually is this good or is this bad? Or, do you like this or do you hate it? There doesn't seem to be much nuance to it. So, that seems, I guess, more plausible if it's a less complex issue. But I think the type of content that we're going for is actually pro nuance. So that seems to be less I guess amenable to that idea.
And really, what the big difference is that it has context. The reason why these are so strongly bifurcated debates, again, are there more than 2 genders, for instance, is because the 2 people debating in that context share nothing in common. So there is no common basis. But if you're debating somebody that you do share some basic fundamental premises with, if you're a socialist and they're a socialist, and your main difference is how to get there, then you have a common foundation. Our goal in this debate is to establish the best way to get to socialism. We already know that we have that in common, so we could be more specific about what the actual terms of this are. I think it needs to be done through this anarcho thing, and you think it needs to be done through this elections thing. But if you don't have that, then it's just I am the defender of, the traditional genders, and you are the person who doesn't hate trans people, and we clearly don't have anything in common, so let's just yell at each other for 2 hours, and chat will decide who wins.
Big agree. I'm scrolling through chat to see if there's any additional questions. Oh yeah, here we go. Megalomorph asks, this is a little bit off topic, but do you have any thoughts on how we could improve political debates between politicians during election season? Is there a way to make them worthwhile for people, or is that just fucking a pipe dream?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of research and thinking done into the area of presidential debates in particular. Mostly because it's kind of a well-known phenomenon that presidential debates don't really have at least very strongly measurable effect on voting outcomes, and serve primarily for, well, one, for ratings. Of course, they wouldn't happen if they didn't achieve good ratings. And the reason why the politicians actually participate in them is in order to bring out the vote. It's not to persuade people one way or another. It's to convince the people who already agree with them that they need to get out and vote, because look at my guy, he's so great. Or more recently, it's more been, look at my other guy, he's so crazy. So my short answer is no. And the main reason is because they are televised entertainment media. The purpose is for, the large, mass mediated television companies who run these debates to get good numbers by doing so and to make themselves look like friends of democracy. And really, what that signals to, for me, my political leanings should be quite obvious at this point, are some much more fundamental problems with the state of democracy under capitalism, which is an oxymoron. They're not compatible, actually.
Man, I used to think like I wanted to like debates should be more important. We should have more of them. We should have like change up the structure. But now I'm leaning towards the side of just like abandoning debates altogether for presidents, because it's like a skill set that doesn't really exist for them to do well in their jobs. You know, as an executive, you're not necessarily debating people. It's more of like a legislator kind of role, I would say. I in the horror of making it even more of a televised event, I honestly would love like a pressure scenario or like some type of like war rooms enactment, like you're an executive and you have like all this stuff going on. Let's see how you deal with pressure, how you deal with, the things. Are you just going to freak out and nuke everyone? Or are you going to like, bring it back to Star Trek and the situation rooms and stuff like that. I think it would be kind of interesting.
What they could really do is just reframe it, because what they're doing is not, it is debate in the sense that it is a thing that everybody participating recognizes as debate, but they're not really making arguments. What they're doing is they're making claims, which is to say that they are describing what they want to do. But an argument has two other parts to it, a grounding, which is evidence. We don't hear a lot of that in presidential debates. And more importantly, the part that most people miss is the warrant, which is the connection between the evidence and the claim, how the evidence actually proves the claim is true, what underlying assumptions you have to connect the two together, which you have to make explicit in order to have a full argument. And this is not what's happening. What they're doing on presidential debates is articulating their perspective as pithily as possible and then launching whatever they can throw rhetorically, usually, at the other person. It's more like a speech competition. If we're being honest,
exactly.
That's great. As a president, you gotta speak to people. But if we pretend, if we just say like this is a fucking presidential speech competition, maybe people would manage their expectations about what they're gonna get from these things and then not be so disappointed every year when it's not really a debate.
True.
Yeah, I think Chad was kind of asking an extension of that question, because we're talking on like a very big scale as far as like presidential debates, or for like the Senate election. I'm hoping that we see like a Fetterman Oz debate just to see how much of a clown fiesta that one turns into. Like that would just be that's content. That's not necessarily like a robust discussion of policy. That's purely content.
Hasn't my state been through enough?
Well, New Jersey has already been through enough with, hosting Dr. Oz for as long as it has. So no need to do to Pennsylvania what New Jersey has suffered through the presence of Dr. Oz, but separate conversation. How, I guess, like, do you think like a more, I guess a smaller scale debate, that those are the words I was looking for, like a primary debate, or like a town hall where like politicians are fielding questions from constituents that get at particular aspects of issues? Like, do you think there's a utility in those compared to something like a broader scale, like a federal or presidential election?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the best thing, like best sort of speech activity, televised or not, doesn't even have to be televised, that a candidate could do to demonstrate their capacity to run for office and their ability to respond to constituents is to, surprisingly, respond to constituents, answer their questions in meat space, as opposed to having their questions filtered by like MSNBC or CNN, whatever dickwad they got to moderate the debate that year. We've seen like past couple of presidential runs, really, like the amount of editorializing that goes into those debates is, comical, really. So I really do think, I'll be honest, the amount of brain cells that I like to spend trying to ameliorate the state of democracy in the United States is not particularly large for a lot of reasons. But if I were to start in one spot, for my immediate expertise, it would definitely be taking away, the spectacle version of any sort of political debate and returning it to just directly conversing with one's candidates in a public forum, allowing them to raise their concerns and addressing them to the best of one's ability. Debating, I think, would be better. I think debating is best practiced among the citizens, not among the representatives.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the difference between like a local town hall of your local representative and its constituents is that those are the people that are directly voting for them. You know, if you're looking at like a presidential debate, you're looking at like, you know, majority people tuning in from California and these other like high population areas, and it's not really representative. And the whole idea of representative democracy is that those ideas, those problems that people are filtering up, and these people go and kind of like they espouse the problems that you're having in your area, and that's a way that they can feel like what's actually happening. That's not happening in these like presidential debates at all. It's just them coming up with the stump speech and then reiterating that back. But you can't do that in a town hall debate. You get absolutely annihilated in those videos, and you go viral, and it looks awful.
That is to say, if we have a citizenry that knows enough about persuasion to be able to know when smoke is being blown up their ass, which, you know, is not entirely, I don't think that's an impossible demand. I think that is a level of education that is rooted in, you know, basic experience that people have that can be honed and refined through these types of activities to actually hold people accountable, should we actually be able to.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think Narbles, we asked, or we kind of touched on your question earlier, when we were talking about like, you know, do people in academia actually like assume conspiracy positions as an exercise, and kind of an extension, like how do you talk to people who are not really like present in reality? It's less about like throwing evidence at them and more like trying to piece apart how they work and trying to like figure them out, with empathy in hand, and not like trying to just dunk on them for content. That's the very short version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Concept Babel was making good points, that we talked about earlier in terms of like the moderation and the structure. Megalomorph says, didn't the RNC vow to withdraw from the Commission on Presidential Debates, meaning we might not even get presidential debates anymore? I remember hearing something about that, but I don't know that for sure, actually.
That was in fact stated. I think that it's important to keep in mind that that was stated when Trump was a much more solid figure within the Republican Party, which is to say he wasn't being prosecuted for stealing nuclear secrets. I think that, you know, really this, I'm been kind of oscillating back and forth on this, but I don't think that the radical side of the Republican Party is going anywhere anytime soon, but perhaps their willingness to completely spurn every conceivable standard of democratic deliberation that we have enjoyed for quite some time, I think they might be learning some of the benefits of reining that in. So I wouldn't be surprised if the RNC reneges on that, especially if they end up nominating a more center style, not center, less terrible candidate, but that is for time to tell.
That makes good sense. All right, Amber, Greg, do you have any other questions for Reed? 'Cause I think we've fleshed this discussion out pretty well, and I think we kind of have a game plan moving forward. I know, like, as far as what's going to happen behind the scenes in the Discord, we'll certainly get like a list of potential topics, and then we'll start roping in other people to see who's interested in what topics, and then we'll try and plan some future ministry episodes around like scheduling topics and people's availabilities. So we might have some Thursday or Tuesday rather debates and discussions. But do either of you have any more questions before we kind of wrap things up? And I'll also keep an eye on chat in case anybody else has any other questions.
No, I'm good. Amber, are you doing Wrath Classic or are you doing the new expansion?
That's a good question.
Say it.
I don't know.
Oh, damn.
Okay, so listen, I despised Classic. Okay, when it first came out, I fucking hated the idea of Classic. I was a ride or die Blizzard fangirl. Like, they can do no wrong. Every expansion is great. And then, you know, certain events transpired that made me leave for a extended period of time with my WoW sleeve in tow. But then I decided to play Burning Crusade Classic.
Okay.
I haven't stopped. It's become a problem again in my life, which is like really fun actually. But
Nice.
so
I'm
I'll probably go to Wrath.
Cool.
But
I'm the
I'll
exact
probably
opposite.
I'll probably like maybe touch the expansion, like get my main to max, and then that's it. You're the exact opposite.
Yeah, I've like played in vanilla
So did
I. I was like 7. It was pretty funny.
Oh my
Played when I was
god.
9, like right when TBC was announced. My brother got me started.
I picked it up maybe like around the time they released Battlegrounds, so like way early. And then I played through played through Kata, quit for a bit, and that was like as a raider. And then I role played. I was pretty exclusively.
I love role playing on WoW.
So fun.
Wait, what server were you on?
Moonguard.
Dude, we probably ran past each other all the time.
100%. I role played from like Mists through what was that trash fucking expansion? Battle for Azeroth.
WoD?
Oh damn,
it was really bad.
You're playing late. Battle for Azeroth is late.
Oh, I played
quit
all the way. I mean, I like played Shadowlands.
Yeah, I didn't play Shadowlands. I came back for Classic. I only recently stopped playing when events transpired in the Blizzard Entertainment world of making great decisions. And at this, I haven't played since, but I might come back for Wrath. I might not.
I actually went to BlizzCon in 2013 when those like Cosby pictures were taken. So I had like a real big existential like, oh fuck moment when that all fucking happened. But yeah, now we're back. So we see how long that lasts.
It does that, you know?
Sometimes it does. It's been 16 years. Let me go. Please. I thought I was finally free.
That's so funny.
It's bad. It's bad.
All right, I think we've had a sufficient amount of WoW posting, so a very robust discussion. It's wholesome. It's wholesome. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with WoW posting.
Does Marcus feel left out?
Well, I didn't really like play MMOs. The last one that I played was
Lost Ark.
Yeah, that's the last one I played.
And Guild Wars 2.
It died.
Terrible fucking game.
Guild Wars 2 is good.
Died. Yeah, I stopped playing Guild Wars 2 after they like started really rebalancing the game back in like 2017. Like I played a lot of it, but then like people I was playing with stopped playing, and then they made a shit ton of balance changes. So I was like, yeah, fuck this.
I've pretty much played every MMO that's come out on the market for like a month or a week, and then just gone back to WoW.
That's what it seems like everyone it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah. Only 2 that ever held my attention other than WoW were Lotro and Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, nice.
A lot of people love hard to get into Final Fantasy. I tried so hard. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's too like kawaii for me. Like it's just very.
Well, the opening quest lines, like 1 to 10, is like all in the city. You're just running back and forth for
it is
10 levels. Weird. I can't get past
quest. Ew.
It's
dude,
terrible.
I love Guild Wars 2. I think that's like my favorite, other than WoW. That's my
really
my favorite. Ashes of Creation, people. Ashes of Creation. Just dock it on your calendar. Just put it on there. That's the one to watch out for. That's gonna be good.
People have been saying
it's good. It looks amazing. Honestly, they've done. It's crazy. They're like, we're gonna do everything every other MMO did, and we're gonna put it all in our game, and we're gonna have it at launch. It's like, what? It's very big. It's a very big game. I mean, I'd be very surprised if they launched with everything, but it seems like they have it on track. So it looks amazing.
Isn't that exactly what that goddamn Amazon? What the hell was it called? The one
New World.
Conquistadors.
The MMO with what was it? 12 mob models in the entire world.
Yeah, New World was very repetitive. It was literally like doing the same quest like 3,000 times in order to get past level 30.
I didn't even touch that one. I didn't even touch
The
it.
combat was so good, though. I mean, Guild Wars 2 has some really good combat. I liked the New World combat. Yeah, getting
Can we
outside
have
of
a
tab
gamer
targeting.
Ministry of Science one day?
Imagine.
Just like just like letting nerds nerd out and just go on our tangents about video games.
we should hop on an Amber's stream on Fridays and do that.
Oh my god, can we?
Yeah, I was lurking watching you play Halo with Carter. So
Damn.
No, it was so bad. Listen,
It happens. It happens.
I don't play. The only FPS I've ever played was Overwatch.
Oh,
I'm a
damn.
dirty Moira main, so I never have to aim at anything
What?
except the broadside of a barn.
Oh my gosh.
So not my game. We live and we learn.
yeah, no, we could talk to Graham, see if we can get like an actual Ministry of Gamers episode.
Just like a one-time extravaganza.
Yeah, because we haven't had like a internal like non-serious topic or guest episode in a while. I think the last time we did that was memeing on Jordan Peterson's extra like 30-something rules on top of the first 12. So
that was fun.
That was fun. I think we're overdue for one of those episodes for sure. So we'll make it happen.
Put it on the schedule.
There's no fun in the lab, people. You're smiling and having fun in the lab. Get back to work.
Get back to work.
Trust me, I am the only one smiling at my lab.
It's okay. We were smiling today because we sacrificed mice in under an hour.
Oh, okay. That is the one day I did not smile.
Gross.
Yeah,
The
we
one
were
day
smiling
that
because
I
we
was
set a
forced
speed
to
run
do it.
record because
Oh
it
my
makes
God.
us nauseous when we like drag it out. So we have to speed run it for our sanity.
Yeah, no, thank you. So that's actually the
That's
reason
worst
why
part
I.
of the job.
That's the reason why I didn't go into mammal research. I was like, plants are fine with me. So.
Yeah, smart choice in retrospect. I don't enjoy doing mouse abortions. As I say in
Yeah.
lab, nobody tell Clarence Thomas because he'll shut that down.
We have to start doing melanoma injections next week. Melanoma cell injections, which
Into
means
mice?
tumors.
Xenografts.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Gross.
Making mice die of human cancer. Oh
And
boy.
the guy that did the injections before is no longer working there, so it's
Gotta
gonna
figure it out.
We couldn't
Hope he
even
wrote-
keep our
So-
cancer to ourselves.
Hope he wrote
Hey, you know
everything
what?
down.
Cancer content. We got literal cancer content.
I'm sure he's. I'm sure he wrote everything down
I
in
need
a
to
good.
talk about cancer somewhere. I haven't done this.
Yeah,
Anyway, sorry.
yeah. We can stem lord over that, Amber, because I can't.
Yes,
I have a
please.
cancer background. We can have a literal cancerous discussion.
Oh, we should. We should one week. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, we could do a. We could do like a almost like a seminar type of thing.
Yeah.
But like more chat. Like
Can
make
I
your
make a
research entertaining.
PowerPoint?
Yeah,
Yes.
for real. I think I've always
Can I
thought that
make
this was like a
meme-
cool.
well, like,
Yeah.
can I make
Yeah.
a tastefully memed PowerPoint?
Yes, the more memes, the better, as long as you don't violate TOS.
Well, I mean
Beautiful.
tasteful because we're going to be talking about cancer. But it will be tasteful. That's all that matters, right?
Exactly.
Whose taste?
Yeah. Cancer's not very
Mine, and
tasty.
I'm very, very, what is it they say? Woke? I'm very woke.
You're a woke moralist?
Yeah, I'm a woke,
That's right.
postmodern neo-Marxist. I was about to say Leninist. That's not the case.
Wow.
I was just thinking of all the buzzwords.
Love my neo-Marxist Leninists. Gotta be my favorite gender.
Okay, Marvy in chat actually just had a really interesting idea for content. We get a random set of research and try and present it as if it's our own.
Wait,
That
what?
would be hilarious. Like
Like,
whose
on the
PowerPoint is
spot?
this? No, you probably would get it in advance, or maybe
No.
not. I don't know.
No, it has to be blind. It would have to be
Better
blind.
content for on the spot. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, I don't know about that one. I don't
Yeah,
know about that one.
We'll brainstorm. We'll brainstorm.
I tried improv too many times in high school, and now I have like just aversion to improv. I'm not even joking.
But that's
Oh,
half the
it's so
comedy
hard.
too, right? It's improv.
Is
like,
this not improv?
yeah, this
It's
is
true.
really
I
improv.
mean, but I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not. You know, like I'm just
Yeah.
myself. But if I have to like make up shit Creativity, mm-mm,
Yeah,
not in this
I mean, it's an
house.
interesting idea.
No, we'll drag you into the dark side of spontaneous content, Amber. Don't worry.
All these
It'll
ideas for
happen.
content, got debates, secret Santa PowerPoints, and
If I don't have the game picked
games.
out the night before I stream, the panic that sets in is
Wow.
unreal. I am such a planner.
But that's the thing. Like you'll have an idea. Like, oh, that it's improv night. That's all you'll get. So you'll know it's the night, but you won't know what it's about.
The night? Oh, God. Okay. Great.
All right, I'll leave you on that food for thought for
Okay.
future ministry episodes of just improv on the spot content. Let's go around and do shout outs because I think we actually breached the 2 hour mark.
We did.
Reed, let's go ahead and start with you since you're gracing us with your presence for the second time now. You can go ahead and lead us off first.
Yeah, of course. Always a pleasure. Always happy to be back and can't wait to come back again. If you want to follow me on the internet, I keep a relatively low profile online, but you can follow me at Reed Van Skank. It's spelled like my name, Reed, and then VANSCHE. Oh, yeah, it's on chat. That's fine. There's a link tree in there, too. Sometimes when I'm not busy writing for grad school, which is not very often, then I will write at basedonwhat1917.blog. So you can find like some hot takes I have about like politics and rhetoric and some breakdowns of like rhetorical concepts there. Yeah, so I will be currently moving into the dreaded comprehensive examination phase of my graduate studies. So the likelihood that you find any based on what takes in the coming months is rather low. So look out on Twitter instead.
That is like low key after like admissions, that's my biggest fear is like the test that you take after a year.
Oh,
So, like,
it's
you're
not that bad.
cringed.
We can prep you. Hell, let's make it fucking stream content. Why not?
Dissertation
I just have to write a
proposal.
paper.
God.
Oh,
Let's see
well,
it.
no, we have qualifying exams in these parts.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not doing a real. Y'all are STEM lords. I'm not in real school, so we just get to do
I
balloon
forget there's
animals
a
for
world
comps.
outside of STEM.
wait, Amber, are you doing a PhD
in
program or master's?
PhD.
Okay, good.
And my PI today said he is planning on retiring in 5 years. So I have
Do a PhD with somebody else.
a timeline. No. He's
Oh,
not
wait,
leaving
you're-
me hanging.
Oh
He's
shit!
not
He wants to
leaving
get
me hanging.
through it before he retires. That's actually a good plan. So he's not going to like keep you
Yes.
longer than you need to be there.
Yes.
Smart.
Or a really bad idea that then you're transferring the last year of your PhD.
No, I don't care. I don't care. Like if I go to another professor, it's whatever.
Okay.
It's not a big deal. But
That's why you have more than one mentor on a committee, so that way the other ones can pick up the slack. If
That's
the
actually a
main
really
dude-
good point. That's a really good point.
But if he ends up like wanting to bust out one more paper before and everything goes well.
Paper schmaper. You think about doing papers, and then you do the research, and then you realize it's a lot farther away than you realize. We can debate notions of productivity in science another time.
Okay, sorry, go. Nope.
No, you're
Ignore
good.
me.
No, you're fine, Amber. Greg, go ahead and shout yourself out, homie.
Well, I'm Greg. I have a YouTube channel called The Peer Review. I think you can go there by thepeer.review. And I have a really good video out right now talking about outlining the different parts of the climate change aspects of the Inflation Reduction Act. So I don't think anyone's really covering it really that well. So hopefully you learned something. So check it out. And I'm sick. I'm freaking really sick. So not feeling good.
We could. Theoretically, if people were like starting to come down with the myriad of crud, we could postpone or take a break from ministry because God knows there's enough insane shit for me to fill the void.
No, it's always good, man. It's fine. It's good to get up and talk and take a shower and get so.
It's something to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Amber, round us out.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm DN Amber. The DN stands for D's Nuts. I'm live
Like,
every
Sam-
Monday and
like, what the fuck
Friday,
is this, dude?
except this Friday. My friend just finished her genetic counseling master's and is back in town.
Nice.
Yay! So we're gonna hang out and vibe and have a little slumber party. However, I usually play games and meme and vibe. We do talk about science and politics, but it's not like the main meat of my channel. Oh, but I always love a good discussion. So go follow me. Yeah.
Very
And join
cool.
my guild on WoW. Bloodsail Buccaneers, classic Burning Crusade. The
What?
guild is called Ooh Woo.
Are you serious? You put on Bloodsail? That's
Yeah.
the hardcore
The
server.
1RP server. You're damn right.
That's the hardcore server.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Bloodsail Buccaneers is the roleplay server on.
I know,
Burning
but
Crusade
that's where the
Classic.
hardcore community makes their characters. I have a couple characters on there, but I've
Oh.
died, so I can't.
It's like the best server ever.
Yeah. Did you know about that? There was like a hardcore is like if you die once, then you have to delete your character.
That content is so
Yeah.
good. The level 59 deaths.
It's
my
so good.
Content.
Dude, I was there on Kargaz's Ding on 60 in Thunder Bluff. I was there, man. I have the screenshots and everything. It was sick.
You had to be there, bro.
Oh my god. My character's
right.
name is E-Girl, too. So it checks out. Anyway.
Masterful.
How is that available? That's insane.
Oh no, I did a fancy eye. I'm tempted to
okay.
like send mail to the real E-Girl and be like, hey. I have the credentials. Do you?
Are you Horde or
I
are
didn't
you
think
Horde?
so.
I'm assuming.
No, I'm on Alliance. Listen.
E-girl, not a blood elf.
I don't like either side better, okay? But to be an E-Girl, you have to be a Draenei. Like, that's just fact.
And dude, I mean, burning down Teldrassil? I mean, come on. That's psychotic.
Oh, I know.
That's psychotic.
Oh, I know. Our game.
Sorry,
could be
Darnassus,
shit,
I think. Darnassus,
like
sorry.
genocide.
And on that note, that wraps up Midfield Science 31. Let's not get into digital genocide discussion. All right.
Good night, folks.
Is that
Thank you
good?
guys.
Is that good?
Reed, thank you again. We'll
Oh
all
my
be in touch in the
God.
Discord when we start brainstorming these. And K-Pars and maybe Rubinsky. I might loop you guys in too, since I know there's a lot of like theory-based discussions that could be good for online debate content that we could make worthwhile. So, and if Blockle is still there lurking, I'll rope you into it too. So just expect Discord messages coming from either me or Amber or Reed in the coming days. So
Perfect.
with that being said, next week we have. Oh God, what is? Oh,
Let me
I'm
pull it up.
going to butcher her name because I butcher her name. Where
shit.
is it?
I am showing this.
It's
Ha-ha.
hang on, because I have an email from her. Oh, not there.
Just kidding.
Okay, what is her
Just
name?
kidding.
It's Susanna Crockford. That's it. That is her name. This is a guest that Professor Q hooked us up with, so we will have her next week. She is in anthropology, talking about a variety of different things: anthropology of environment, medicine, and religion. Did some ethnographies about climate change. Currently works on the ethics and politics of vaccine refusal. So I think there's going to be a
Ooh.
pretty interesting like back and forth of content. But she only has an hour, so we'll probably
Aw.
talk after an hour, kind of like in the post game after that. But that'll be a really interesting guest because we'll have an opportunity to pick her brain pretty quick. So we'll come up with some things to ask her beforehand. So again, thank you everybody for your time, and that's what you have to look forward to next week is Dr. Crockford. So we'll
Sweet.
see you all then.
Alrighty. Adios.
Bye.
Adios, everybody.
Alrighty. I am out of here. I am pooped. Thanks for watching. Adios.